Hi, it's Chris from Build Images here. Today I wanted to give you my top 10 composition tips that will help improve your photography and make it a bit more interesting. Tip number one is the rule of thirds. So instead of placing your subject always in the middle of the frame, try putting them to one side or to the other. This is called the rule of thirds, and it makes your photography or your photos look that much more interesting. So just try and experiment with that rule of thirds. Tip number two is to change your perspective. If you're always shooting from eye level as you're standing, all your images are going to look very similar. So try something different. Get up high, get up on a step ladder, get down low, get on your knees and shoot upwards. Shoot towards the sky, shoot towards the ground, shoot differently, shoot different angles. One tip for shooting with kids, if you're at a kids party or something like that, get down to their level, get down on your knees and shoot at their eye level. That will give the perspective of the kids and show them having fun. Tip number three is to be selective about your image when you compose it. So make sure you're having a think about what is your key subject. Don't just get snap happy and take random photos, because a lot of them will come back average. So really focus in on your subject and also be aware of their surroundings. So if there's something distracting in the background and you can't move the subject, there's an old saying in photography, if you can't move your subject, move yourself. So just get a different angle and it can change everything. Tip number four is to change your framing. So use landscape and portrait mode in different settings. And think outside the box on this one, because you might be taking a photo of something long and skinny like a building, and obviously the obvious choice is to take it in portrait mode, but try it in landscape. You might focus in on different details and get a different perspective on it. Tip number five is to make use of leading lines. So they're lines that you can help navigate people's eye through the photo towards. So there might be some lines along a railway line or something like that will lead to the train, or other lines in a car park that will lead to cars or to people. So look for line, look for shape that will lead the viewer's eye through the photo. Tip number six is depth of field. So you may not know what that is. Well, that's adjusting your aperture. So if you have a small aperture or a low number, such as 2.8, you're going to have what's called a narrow depth of field. So your subject is going to be really sharp and the background is going to be really blurry. So that's a really nice effect that you can give, and they're good for people photography. With landscapes, you want to have a wide depth of field, so an aperture of say 9, 10, 11, that sort of thing, so everything is in focus. Tip number seven is to give your subject some room. So if you're taking a photo of a runner, for example, and they're heading this way, you would leave plenty of space in the image for them to run into, rather than coming across here and being at the edge of the frame where you can't see them and it's like they're trapped. So that's tip number seven, is to give room to your subject. Tip number eight is the opposite to tip number seven. So it's actually filling the frame and not giving the subject any room. So you might want to zoom right in and capture just the person's face, or a specific part of a car, for example. Tip number nine follows on from tip number eight, which is isolate some detail. So as I said, you might want to zoom right in on a part of a person's face, someone's feet. So you're not giving the full image, you're actually leaving it up to people's imagination to fill the rest of the photo. And it's a really good one because it leaves people questioning the rest of the image. Tip number 10 is to shoot with the full frame in mind. So don't shoot thinking I'm going to crop this later. That then makes you really stop and think about what you're doing, and think about your composition, think about your lighting, and exactly what it is that you're trying to capture. So if you have in mind, I'll just take this photo and I'll just crop it later, they never look as good, and it shows in the final product. So if you stop and think about what it is that you're focusing on and what the story is that you want to tell, it makes for a much better picture. So shoot with full frame in mind, not cropping. So they were my top 10 composition tips for photography. I hope that was helpful and you got something out of it. If you have any comments or questions, please leave it in the comments below, and I'll see you again soon.